All right, the great moment of your life has come. We're going to talk about cannabis. Please welcome Brad Queen.
Okay, so I'm an engineer, but for the most part, I'm not going to talk about technology. This is really more of a policy issue, the growth of cannabis and all the concern around its emissions. We have a very sloppy or messy legislative and ballot initiative-driven process. And we don't really know where we're at. So the first thing we need to do is collect more data. Boulder County asked me to go out into marijuana grows and collect this data using e-gauge energy monitors and analyze it to really see what's going on. And we did that so we could invoice and we could give those grows more information about how they operate. And what we found was there's a tremendous amount of variation in intensity in grows, but for the most part, they run like data centers. Those blue lines are indoor grows, whereas that gray mark on the side of the chart is your average commercial space. We also found that the dominant models don't have a lot of data and are not necessarily relevant in this region. This is also my shout out to say that anybody that has interval data on grows and wants to argue with me on this, I want to have that data. So I want people to argue with me on that point. Now let's say the growers are highly rational and very responsive to the markets, more so than most people think they are. But the markets don't really serve them very well because this is a young, fast-growing industry. Going back to Evan Mills' work, he notes a number of energy policy and drug legalization failures that really stymie what this industry should be doing as far as its production. Primarily, criminalization has created a market distortion on demand, and security has driven the crop back inside. Now, that criminalization created all this latent demand, and now that the market's legalized that market, there's this rush for market share. And the last thing you care about is efficiency when you're trying to grab the market. And this licensing data from the State Department of Revenue shows that big jump in capacity where these growers are scrambling to go grab warehouse space, particularly in Denver, to meet that demand. And of course, you do not care about efficiency while you're doing that. And they're doing that in Denver because state legalization doesn't mean there's liberalization at all the counties. So green is good in this chart. There are not many places as of 2013 where growers can operate, and of course they're going to flock there, and that's going to create a real estate boom. And then once you get into one of those municipalities, Denver being the most hospitable one nationally, there's a limited number of places where you can grow. You have to stay away from schools, and you have to stay in commercial and industrial space. So that's where they ended up, and that creates a housing crisis. Just like residential housing crises in the Front Range, the people that were sitting on that real estate, the landlords or the growers that own their facilities, they have the upper hand, and it's extractive. It really distorts the market to the point where growers often have such pressure from their rents that they don't care about electricity so much. If you're paying 2 to 3 times as much for your rent, even though you are very intensive, you don't care. And you have these market pressures. Price has been dropping, sales have been going up. I'm an engineer, so I could do the math. Production must be going up, and that means margins are getting squeezed. And so landlords really don't care about that. They want their money, and they're going to get it. And so the landlords that understand these market effects, I don't think many landlords are out there studying those markets. What you're going to see is growers are going to be going out of business. There's going to be consolidations. That's not a very good way for that market to rectify. And then there's also the problem of shared meters. Part of this is a landlord split incentive problem, where if you share a meter, you don't get the demand price signals. If you make energy efficiency improvements and you are not billed appropriately to your use, it goes to somebody else. Now, there's also the issue of investors. Now, this guy makes me nervous, but if I was a cannabis investor, I would be more nervous. So it would make me less likely to invest in this sector. And if I did, I'd want more margin. The banks won't touch it. Because of the federal prohibition. That ripples down into credit, revolving credit, which most businesses need. It also keeps them from contracting with solar gardens providers, PPAs, all the energy products that you're used to that are finance-based, they can't use. And then if they had the money, they have sales claims to wade through. And as Evan Mills also says, but you can't read, there is no lead, there is no Energy Star for cannabis. I would say there's not even the national labs because Evan Mills had to do this work in his spare time. And then the state regulators, I'm not going to bash anybody, but they're not nimble enough to keep up with this market. And so if we want to make good decisions about this, we need to get out ahead of these issues right now There isn't that much focus. The data is there. We can make decisions. The market can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. That is true here. So we need to address these market failures before we throw technology and DSM programs at the problem. Thank you.